Let's dig into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise and rank the films in this franchise from worst to best. Hey, we're talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise and ranking the films in this franchise from worst to best. This franchise definitely has a mixed bag of films, a remake series, an alternate timeline series. The character of Leatherface is the constant, but the cast around him rotates quite regularly. Before we get into it, I want to make sure that you like this video. Stop right now, go ahead and smash that like button for me. Definitely appreciate that. Leave your comments, make sure you're subscribing to the channel, make sure you're setting up notifications. Tell me the kinds of videos that you want me to be recording for you. At the end of the day, this is my love for horror, but I'm also trying to put out videos that people want to see, so let me know. Also, make sure you're watching until the end of this video for our topic of the day. Alright, let's get into ranking these films here in this Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. Like I said, there's a mixed bag, so we're all over the place. Starting in at number 8, we're talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, released on September 22nd, 1995. Written and directed by Kim Henkel. This one's weird. It's odd on so many levels. Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger are featured in this movie. A lot of people forget that. It's the stories are odd. Most characters have no development. The film was weird for the sake of being weird. Wish I could say I hate it, but I don't go that far. It's still an interesting film. It's honestly not one I watch very often, though. All right, number 7 is Leatherface, released on October 20th in 2017. Julian Marion and Alexandra Bustillo and Seth M. Sherwood. So these are the directors from the absolutely amazing film Inside. The latest entry into this franchise is An Expected Brutal Massacre, right? I mean, if you've seen Inside, you kind of know what these directors are all about. Story centers around 4 inmates who escape from a mental hospital. One of them becomes the title character and iconic slasher. Bit of a twist towards the end. Fun film, but nothing that really grabbed me. I will say I kind of liked the twist because they're really leading you down a path, and all of a sudden things kind of go a little flippy on you at the end. Outside of that, probably along the same lines as The Next Generation. Not one that I'll probably rewatch too much, but then again, it just came out a few years ago, so let's see how that goes. Number 6 is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning, released on October 6, 2006. This one's by Jonathan Liebsman and Sheldon Turner. Decent film to focus more on being nasty than scary, but that tends to be the shtick with this franchise, I think. R. Lee Emery is awesome. He's always awesome. Right? This role, as are a lot of the family as well. The story with the 2 brothers heading to serve in Vietnam and the dynamic there definitely made for an interesting film opening. And once the action happened, things got interesting. Again, I ranked this one at number 6 on my list of worst to best. But at the end of the day, it's a pretty damn good movie. So I'll give him that. Coming in at number 5 is Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, released on January 12th, 1990. Jeff Burr and David Chow were responsible for this one. See what I mean about how weird this series is? You got a couple movies called Leatherface. You got it's really all over the place. At the end of the day, it really is a shame that Leatherface, this 3rd film in the franchise, did not do well. It's a good film, but it pretty much killed the franchise for New Line Cinema, at least for nearly 15 years. The family's back, a little less terrifying than the previous versions, but the film could still frighten you. There's a ton of bonus scenes that never made the film either. Some of them were interesting. If you ever get to watch the working print of the film, take that opportunity. There's some really cool stuff that goes on in there. And it's much easier to get those types of prints now and at least see that footage than back in the day when we were all swapping VHS tapes and checking films out. Because, That's how we got to see a lot of Italian horror that we got to see, and it's also how we got to see a lot of these bonus clips. Now you basically look up, working print on YouTube or bonus scenes, and you'll get your pick of the litter, which is kind of awesome, obviously. So, in retrospect, people give Leatherface, a lot more love now than they did in 1990, so that's kind of cool. But back then, like I said, the franchise basically just got buried for a while. All right, coming in at number 4 is Texas Chainsaw 3D from January 4th, 2013 by John Lewensop, Adam Marcus, and Deborah Sullivan. People absolutely hate this movie. I have 2 words for you on that one. Alexandra Daddario. Okay, honestly, this film gets a bad rap. Yes, of course, Alexandra Daddario is easy on the eyes, but the film as a whole is not horrible. The story changes around quite a bit, and I think that offends people in some ways. It feels like the focus is more on the ladies in the film than on Leatherface, but Leatherface is still brutal, and the end takes an interesting twist. I watched this film a ton of times since its release, probably because it always seems to be on. Since this movie's released, Alexandra Daddario has been everywhere, right? So she's been in some big films. I think they try to capitalize on that and show, hey, this is what she did. She's also did some other horror films earlier than this that never get redistributed. But this one seems to always be somewhere, streaming or on cable or something like that. Not a bad film at all. A lot of people really just take a crap on this one, though. Number 3, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, released on August 22nd, 1986 by Tobe Hooper and L.M. Kit Carson. Alright, so somehow Tobe Hooper figured out how to make the family just a little more strange. Bill Moseley as Chop Top is amazing. Without that role, we would have never seen Otis in House of a Thousand Corpses and beyond, in my opinion. Dennis Hopper as Lefty was interesting, cheesy for the most part, but it kind of just worked. The one thing about this film that bothers me is that the terror you see in the original is not the same here. This film is more silly than frightening, but it still works well. I will say, without Chop Top, I don't know how much I would have really been into this film. That's the one thing I go back and forth with all the time. He's a great character, but the hokiness that you get, like when Hopper goes finds a family, is just a little weird, and like a chainsaw fight, and it's just those kinds of things, I guess, worked in the 80s. They do not hold up well, though. But needless to say, to me, this film does hold up well, but a lot of people have this ranked as their worst film in the franchise. All right, coming in at number 2, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, released on October 17, 2003 by Marcus Nispel and Scott Kozar. I will never look at a white tank top again in the same way. Jessica Biel was amazing in this film in many ways. Eric Balfour was awesome. Erica Learson was great, of course. Maybe at least just to me, from Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows fame. A lot of people really hate that movie, and a lot of people don't realize that she's been in other movies. But she's always pretty cool to watch. Of course, again, Arlie Emery is awesome. This film's a remake, but changed things around just a little bit. It's brutal. It has such memorable visuals. Marcus Nispel came out of nowhere with having directed music videos and getting a call for this remake. He also did the Friday the 13th remake, which I was a big fan of as well. I absolutely love this film, and it's just proof positive that not all remakes are bad. And number 1, the original, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, released on October 11th, 1974, by Tobe Hooper and Kim Henkel. What can you say about this film? Unfortunately, it seems like people watching it for the first time these days find it boring as hell. Back in the day, this film was frightening, it was filthy, it made you think twice about picking up a hitchhiker, to say the least. The characters were just awesome. I hate Franklin, and that's the point. People always get bent out of shape because they're like, oh, Franklin is so annoying. That's what they were going for. I mean, I did a deep dive on this movie, and there's some things in there. It's like he really got into it. He really got into the character, trying to be as annoying as possible, like behind the camera, in front of the camera. It's just, he was a great character, as painful it is to watch because he's such a whiny little prick in it. All right, and the dinner scene, right? That's just painful to watch. It ended up being painful to film as well. But this is a must-see horror movie for everyone. Of course, if you're watching it for the first time, let me know your thoughts on it. I know when my son watched it for the first time, he found it to be quite boring. And I would imagine that that's going to be kind of the general consensus, but I definitely want to hear what folks' take on that is. Okay, topic of the day. In the comments below, tell me your rankings of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre films from worst to best. I want to see what your list is. So that wraps this video up. I want to hear from you. Post your thoughts on this video. Let me know how these films impacted your love for horror. That's it for this episode. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you share this video. Make sure you subscribe. But most of all, make sure you keep it horror.